Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Cornwall Borough Council's webinar for the public engagement exercise for stakeholders regarding the local government reorganisation across Hertfordshire. I'm Sally Symington. I'm the leader of Cornwall Borough Council, and I'm here to introduce Angie Ridgewell, who is the Chief Executive of Herts County Council, and Darren Welsh, who is the Chief Executive of Cornwall Borough Council, who are going to take us through a presentation which will give you some background. Actually, if we can go to the next slide, Kate. So the agenda for tonight's evening is the context of local government reorganisation, our vision and our ambitions for the reorganisation, where we are and the path forward. And then we're going to look at the options being considered. And after the presentation, we'll be taking questions and feedback. So I'm going to hand over to Angie to just talk you through the context.
Thank you, Sally. And thank you to everyone for joining us today to hear a little bit more about local government reorganisation. So just to set the context for you, late last year, the government set out its plans in a white paper about how it wanted to change how local councils operate. And clear to this was for areas like Hertfordshire, where we have a two-tier system of local government with a county council that runs a range of services and a number of district and borough councils that run a range of services. They want us to combine together to create a smaller number of unitary councils, which will provide the whole range of local government services to the residents of our Hertfordshire. And as part of that, since then, all 11 council leaders in Hertfordshire have been working together to put forward joint proposals about how local government could be reshaped to better serve our residents and our communities here in Hertfordshire. We will be submitting our final proposals to government in November this year, on the 28th of November. And today is to set out for you where our thinking is on this. The other thing just to mention is that in the white paper, the government have also set out provisions for devolution within Hertfordshire, with the possibility of setting up a strategic authority and a mayor who would oversight Hertfordshire. But the purposes of today is to look at local government reorganisation, not the devolution principles. So we've set out a number of visions, or a vision for Hertfordshire, which are helping to influence the way that we want to progress in terms of local government reorganisation. Through this model, we want to make sure that public services are enhanced for our residents here in Hertfordshire. That means we want to unify our services around people and places. We clearly want to improve governance, so we want to make it clearer and simpler for people to know which local authorities they should be speaking to. And of course, the whole purpose of this is to make sure that we deliver better outcomes, including through better collaboration and strategic planning for delivery of those services that work well together. Underpinning all of this, we want to make sure that everything we do, every decision we make, puts our residents at the heart of the way we design our services. We want them to be prevention-led, so actually we stop people having problems, that we support people early so that they don't need our services. But equally, when people do need our services, they're both inclusive and they're enabling, so we help people to get back on their feet and live meaningful, independent lives as soon as possible. Of course, we want to work with partnerships, and we also want to make sure that wherever possible, we use data and technology to make our services much more efficient. But ultimately, it is people who will be at the heart of everything that we do here in Hertfordshire. Next slide, please. So, as I've said, in terms of the way that we want to move forward and design the structure of local government and each unitary authority here in Hertfordshire, is to make sure that those services are designed around people's needs, designed around your lives and not the boundaries that designate where administrations start and stop. We want to make sure that our services are efficient At the moment, there's a degree of duplication, and it's not always clear which local authority you need to speak to in order to get your problem solved or help with the issues that you want to tackle. So we want to make it easier for you to know which authority to speak to. We want to make it easier for you to access us with digital services wherever possible. But equally, we want to make sure that when you need to speak to a person, there's a person there to speak to you. In particular, we recognise that through unification, we can unlock some of the potentials of growth that we already have here in Hertfordshire. Hertfordshire is a fantastic county, but by working together on a more strategic footprint, we think we can build on our strengths, such as life science and creative industries, making sure that not only are we making our services better for our residents, we're actually enabling businesses to grow. So we're creating more jobs and more opportunity, particularly for our young people as they grow into adulthood. And communities must be at the heart of everything that we do. So we have many distinct and different communities here in Hertfordshire, and we want to make sure that through local government reorganisation, we get better connections to those communities, and they feel empowered to help us to design the decisions and to deliver our services in the ways that work from them. So just very briefly, and I won't cover every bullet in this slide, as I said, we currently have the Hertfordshire County Council, which covers all of Hertfordshire. And also in Hertfordshire, we have 10 district and borough councils, which deliver services to a smaller geographical area. Largely speaking, the County Council delivers, most of what we deliver is the social care services. So looking after our children, providing educational services, providing adult care services. That makes up about 80% of what we do, and they are significant services looking after the most vulnerable people in our communities. We also provide public health. We deal with highways, which I know is important to everyone, and we have the Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue Services. Districts and borough councils deliver a range of services too. You will know very much so that they deliver the planning services, so you'll deal with them for your new houses, but also they have the local plan, which set out how development should happen in an area. They provide housing and homeless services, which are crucial to people's lives. They collect the bins and replace those. They also have environmental health and leisure services, all of which are fundamental services. Now, it might be obvious to you, but it's clear that there's some oddities in the way that government is currently structured. So, for example, social care works really closely with housing, and that's quite difficult at the moment when they're delivered by different institutions. And who knew that there could be a connection between waste disposal and waste collection? So with unification, we hope to address some of these anomalies and make it much easier for people to know who to contact when they have an issue that they need help resolving. Next slide, please. So just in summary, in terms of the proposals in the white paper, our current town and parish councils will stay as they are under the white paper. There is no proposition to change them. The white paper then looks to bring in a fewer number of unitary organisations to replace the county council and the 10 district and borough councils. So you'll have one unitary authority delivering that whole range of services that I've just talked about in the previous slide. And then in time, we will also have a strategic authority, which will potentially be led by a mayor, and that is where any powers devolved from central government will come down to. But that is a later point in our devolution strategy, and that is something that will happen in a longer time. And today is all about talking about unitary authorities and what that might mean for you. And on that note, I'll hand back to you, Sally, to talk a bit about why this is so important. Thank you. Sally, you're on mute.
Angie, thank you. I'm sorry. So thank you everyone for attending this evening. Why is it important? For us at DBC, at Decorum, and at Herts County Council, and across all the districts and boroughs, we're reaching out to everybody, all our residents, all our stakeholders, to hear from you about how you would like your services delivered. This is a once in a generation opportunity to shape the future of local government in Hertfordshire. It's more than 50 years since we had our last local government reorganisation, and we're setting the future for our children and our grandchildren. And it's really important that we get those services right and we put in place the methods of delivery to ensure absolutely the best services are delivered. So what we want to do is to build a responsive and resilient system, one that will face the test of time and that reflects the local identity of where we live and what we bring to it, but also to unlock benefits for residents, businesses and communities. So I want to thank you all for coming. I'm going to hand over to Darren, who's going to talk a bit more about it, but just really to say thank you and please engage in this process.
Thank you, Sally. I'm going to say a few words about what's happened so far, what's currently happening and what happens next. So in terms of what's happened so far, the interim plan for Hertfordshire was submitted towards the end of March, and Hertfordshire County Council and the District and Borough Councils and the Police and Crime Commissioner worked together to explore a number of options and set out those options in that submission. Those options looked at a range of different scenarios, ranging at that time from a single county-wide unitary authority, which has since been ruled out as not being the most optimum approach, a 2 unitary authority, a 3 and a 4. And the submission said that we would carry out further analysis and consultation on those options. It's probably worth reflecting on the government's approach to this, and the government has published a number of criteria which it tells us it will use to evaluate the proposals that are submitted to it when we finalise those proposals and submit them towards the end of November. Those criteria are set out on the screen at the moment, but just going through them just to summarise the criteria which the government is focusing on, it's looking for proposals which bring together districts and boroughs and counties to create one single tier of local government. It's looking for unitary councils which are of the right size to achieve efficiencies, but are also financially sustainable. There's been a lot of focus around whether there's a particular size in terms of the number of population that those authorities might be. And although a figure of 500,000 has been used, that's very much been clarified by the government as being a guiding principle rather than the target. And there's flexibility and a recognition from the government that there will be a wide range of different types of authority which will come forward in the proposals. Government's also looking for unitary authorities that will deliver the very best services in terms of high quality, sustainable public services to residents. The government wants to see how issues of local identity and cultural and historic importance are reflected in the proposals. And finally, the government's looking for proposals which facilitate and enable stronger community engagement through those new unitary structures. Angie mentioned the timeline that we're currently working on. Here's a bit more detail around the timeline. We're currently in our engagement month, where we're going out to communities and stakeholders, providing further information and asking you what you think about the proposals which we're working on and which we're looking to take forward. When that exercise completes, we will then do the analysis of what's come out of that and further analysis around how those new unitary structures for councils could work, with a view to then going through council decision-making structures in Hertfordshire to confirm for each area which the preferred option is, and then include that in the submission that is put forward to government towards the end of November. Once we submit the proposals towards the end of November, it's very much in the government's hands as to progressing this. And we have outlined an indicative timeline which the government has shared with us. It would require a lot of things to happen quite quickly, and it is indicative, so it could change. And the government has emphasised that the timetable will depend on the complexity of the proposals that come forward. But once the submission goes in, it is indicated that the government could come back with its preferred option or options for further consultation in spring of next year, and that following that further consultation on the government's preferred option or options, there'd be a government decision in the early summer. If that all happens according to plan, the elections to the new shadow unitary authorities could take place in May 27, and that means that the new councils could be vested and come into being from the 1st of April 28. So just moving on, so what does this mean for town and parish councils? As we said earlier, town and parish councils aren't being reorganised through these proposals. However, within the proposals that reorganise county councils and district and borough councils, the government is indicating that it is looking for a new model of community engagement and community empowerment structured around the concept of neighbourhood area committees, which would devolve functions and decision making to a local level. And these neighbourhood area committees, which would form part of the formal governance and structures for the new unitary authorities, could include, for example, town and parish councillors on their boards, as well as representatives from community organisations and other stakeholders. The direction of town and parish councils and decisions relating to how those relationships will be taken forward may come down to decisions taken locally with input from town and parish councils and other key stakeholders. And we are engaging extensively with town and parish councils, and the views from town and parish councils will form an important part of basing the decisions that we and others, our successor authorities, take forward. What does this mean for residents? We have referenced this in Angie's earlier section, but our ambition is very much that this will enable us to take forward plans to ensure that every resident and every part of Hertfordshire can reach their full potential with no one left behind. That in terms of benefits for residents, there will be simpler, faster services, a single point of contact, whereas at the moment there are many points of contact, a stronger local voice as well, with a larger council that can speak with more authority on behalf of all residents. In terms of who's leading the approach, the district and borough councils in Hertfordshire are working together with Hertfordshire County Council and the Police and Crime Commissioner. They're working to align their plans to both the government's criteria, which I set out earlier, and the needs of local communities. And discussions and work programmes are underway to support the proposals that will go forward at the end of November. So just a few words now about the options that are being considered and what they look like geographically and in terms of population size. So there are three options that are currently being considered and on which we are seeking the views of residents and stakeholders. And those are 2 unitary councils, 3 unitary councils, and 4 unitary councils. I'm going to show you a map for each of them, and the first map is on the screen now. They're in a very similar format. So for each of these maps, there is a table which shows the indicative population size of the local authorities, which it is proposed may be set up. And it also gives you an indication of population growth. So it also gives you an indication of how those communities and populations will grow over the next 20 years. That's in the table in blue. And then you will see on the map how it's proposed the 2 new council areas could be configured. In all of these maps, decorum is shown as a dark purple. And you will see that for the 2 unitary model, we are grouped in the west of Hertfordshire, together with St Albans, Watford, Hertsmere and Three Rivers, with 1 unitary authority covering the services for that area. Moving on to the 3 unitary map and option, you will see that that's on the screen in front of us now. The population sizes, because we're now talking about 3 rather than 2 councils, reduce. Just by way of reference and for comparison purposes, the current population of decorum is around just over 150,000. So it just gives you the comparison there in terms of the populations proposed for the new council areas. You will see that decorum is in the west, in the dark purple again, together with Three Rivers and Watford in this model. You will see there is a hatched line which is hatched in green on the purple towards the bottom of the map. And the new configurations of councils are based on existing council boundaries with some modifications. And the 3 unitary option, the 4 unitary option, both have some modifications. So this modification would slightly change the boundary between Watford and Hertsmere as it currently stands, and it would bring Bushey into the council area that would include decorum. So there's a minor modification that's proposed there to make a more sensible geography of the councils that may come into being if the 3 council option is taken forward. And finally, we have the 4 unitary option. You will see that the population sizes change again because we now have 4 councils rather than 3 or 2. You'll see that decorum is now grouped with St Albans. And you'll also see that there are some changes. Again, they're shown in hatched, where existing council boundaries may change as a result of these proposals. However, those modifications do not directly impact on decorum, where the boundaries stay the same. And you will see there what the population numbers look like also. So those are the 3 options that are currently proposed. I'm handing back to Sally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Darren. So we're going to move to the questions and feedback. And I'm going to start with some questions that have been put in, been emailed in. And the first question is this happening elsewhere in the country or just in Hertfordshire? And I'll maybe ask Angie to come in first on that and get Darren afterwards if he wants to add anything.
Thank you very much, Sally. So yes, this is happening in all areas of England where there is two-tier government, so counties with districts and boroughs. So as well as Hertfordshire, we have our neighbours Essex, who are already in this process, as are Surrey. And then there are a range, I won't name every other area, but we have Cambridgeshire, Lincolnshire, Derbyshire, all of those, as well as many others, are going through this. So it's every two-tier area. Hertfordshire has not been singled out. Thank you.
Angie. Darren, I think Angie's probably answered that. So shall we go on to the next one, and I'll let you come in. And the next question is how much is this going to cost? And maybe I'll go to Darren first on that.
I can probably wrap that up with another question, which is the government providing any funding for it? Which is that we're still working our way through a very detailed exercise to look at the cost of this exercise. The expectation is that the cost of setting up the new unitaries will be funded by savings and efficiencies from setting up the new unitaries. So the government expectation is that it will be self-funding and self-financing from efficiency that will arise through the reorganisation process, and that will be phased in over time. In terms of the exact figures, that's not something we can confirm at the moment until we've done a bit more detailed work on it.
Thank you, Darren. I'm just going to take it just up a level, and because I'm not sure exactly what the question was aimed at, but some funding has been provided for the councils to go through the initial process. That doesn't tell you how much it's going to cost, but obviously there's a huge amount of officer time has gone into this. And actually, if I just turn to you, Angie, if you can just outline how much funding we got from central government and how that's being split between the county council and the councils to deliver the programme that we're going through now, which will culminate in November when we submit our responses.
Thank you, Sally. So yes, the government gave to Hertfordshire, as it did to all areas, about going through reorganisation, about £370,000 as a contribution to the costs that we're incurring in terms of preparing our submission, which needs to be put in November this year. That has been Hertfordshire is working really collaboratively. We decided to pull that money, and we have used that to get supporting evidence to have a consistent business case, which gives the evidence which will support the 2, 3 and 4 unitary bids. As Darren said, though, the costs of restructuring will be significantly more expensive than that. We haven't got the figures yet, but it will certainly be a lot more than £370,000. But it is expected, and early modelling has indicated, that the savings through efficiency will over time repay those sums of money and give taxpayers better value for money. Thank you.
Thanks, Angie and Darren. That's sort of two aspects of the question around cost, the cost of where we are and the longer term costs. The next question is it likely that government could propose a solution that is not supported by the majority of the councils in the area? Angie, do you want to take that first?
Yes, certainly. So this is a really good question. The decision on reorganisation will be one for the Secretary of State. When we do our submissions in November, each local authority has to indicate which of the 2, 3 or 4 unitary models they support. They can only choose one. So there will be a submission. You know, we would like all councils to agree, but we recognise that's unlikely to happen. So we will put forward a number of options, but it will be a decision for the Secretary of State after they have done some formal consultation with local residents and businesses. There is evidence that governments, the previous government has chosen a solution that was not supported by the local authorities in the area, but it is our anticipation that unless we go really wild, the government would choose one of the 3 options that we propose to them. But it is the Secretary of State's decision, and they will have to account for the decision that they make. Thank you.
Thanks, Angie. Darren, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Sally, I think the only thing to add, just to reinforce the point that Angie made, that it is a government decision. The government have been really clear about that. Of course, we have had some significant changes in government in the last week, so we are dealing with a completely new ministerial team. So we're waiting to see whether there are any policy changes or changes of approach that may come out of that. At the moment, nothing's been signalled, but it is probably worth just mentioning that there is a new ministerial team now in charge, and we're waiting to see whether there's any new information that comes about as a result of that.
Thank you, Darren. That's really helpful. Thank you, Angie. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question, which I think actually Darren has largely addressed. So I'll just read it out. Is the government providing any funding towards the cost of this process? I think actually Darren and Angie, you tackled that, including the implementation. So obviously those are two separate bits. Or is it expected to be self-funding? As I said, I think we've largely addressed this. I don't know whether there's anything else to add at this stage, Angie. No. And
nothing
Darren?
to add on that, no.
Okay. So right, sorry, I'm just scrolling up here. So the next question is, what if all the councils don't want the same option? Shall we go to Darren first on that one?
Thank you, Sally. So what we expect to happen is for a joint submission to go in from Hertfordshire, which will be collectively signed off by all of the partner Hertfordshire councils. But within that submission, we are expecting it to have options, with each council indicating what its preferred option is. The councils will be going through a decision-making process in November to determine which of those options that they would wish to support. And in decorum, we will be having a special full council to consider this on the 12th of November, and then a cabinet meeting on the 18th of November. So there's a decision-making process to go through to endorse options locally. But we do expect that although in an ideal world you want everyone to sign up to one option, that actually there will be one submission, but within that submission, different areas and different authorities will be signing up to different options, and then it will be for the government to make a decision on what preferred options they wish to take out to consultation. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. I'll just come in as one of the leaders, of one of the 11 leaders, and to say that we meet every 2 weeks, so that we're in regular conversation. I think it's unlikely that all the councils will agree with the same option. But what is really encouraging about Hertfordshire and is that we are working to a common evidence base. So we are what's going to back up what we do is agreed by all of us. But within that, and I think this has been explained already, that the councils will make their own choices. So if all the councils don't agree on the same option, of course, we revert to the fact that the Secretary of State will ultimately have the decision. I'll move on to the next question. The population projections in Hertfordshire are quite significant over the next 20 years, regardless of the number of unitary authorities. Is this a driver for local government reorganisation? Angie, do you want to take that question?
Thank you. So no, I don't believe this is a driver for local government reorganisation. I think this government, and indeed successive governments who haven't tackled the issue fundamentally, believe that a single tier of local government in an area will provide better services and will be easier for the public to navigate and will provide clarity in terms of accountability. So the number of residents or population is not a driving force. However, as Darren said previously, we do need to consider the population projections when looking at what we think is the best size for a local authority. And indeed, one of the reasons that a single unitary council for Hertfordshire was taken off the table was because it was believed that 1.2 million population would make it the biggest council in the country. And it was felt by the leaders that that would be too remote from the public. So it's not a driver, the population of Hertfordshire, but it is a consideration when individual councils decide which model they want to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. And I'm going to come to you for the next question after I've had a chance to answer it myself. So the question is very decorum related. Does Dacorum Borough Council have a preference they believe would work best? And if so, which is it? So thank you for this question. It's obviously incredibly important. And at the expense of sounding like a politician, I'm going to say actually today's event, this evening's event, and in fact the whole of this month and the preceding months are very much about going out to consultation. It's about us as councillors and the officers listening to you and asking your opinion. So I'm not going to prejudice tonight's conversation, tonight's webinar, by saying that there is a preference. The preferences are obviously, there are many factors that lead to that, to do with, the population size, the delivery of services, the economic growth, the growth in the area and the regions where we link best to. All these things are factors which we will take into account. But primarily, as I said, at the moment, we're very much in the consultation phase and we want to hear from all of you. So I'm not going to prejudice anything, but I'm going to let Darren come in as the Chief Executive and add anything else that he wants to my comments.
I think the only thing I wish to add, Sally, is just to say that there are a range of views around the benefits of each option, all of which are legitimate, and we will be going through a formal process to finalise our council position on the dates that I've set out in November. So we're looking very carefully at all the detail. We're making sure that all the views are being fed back, so that what goes into the joint submission at the end of November really firmly reflects what's being fed back from our local communities, and we'd have an open and transparent process to decide which option we will be finally supporting as a council and as communities in Dacorum.
Thank you. So I'm going to move on to the next question. At what point in the timescales given is it expected individual services / departments within each local authority be looked at and evaluated for amalgamation? Angie, do you want to come in on that, as you've led so much work on this?
Thank you very much, Sally. So there are a significant number of services that collectively local government in Hertfordshire provides to its residents and indeed to local businesses. We have got a significant work programme lined up to look at each of those services to decide how they are best provided within a unitary government structure. Clearly, to finalise that, we need to understand what model we will be delivering to, and that will require the Secretary of State's decision, which we expect to come out probably in the summer of next year. So after that point, we will be working in detail through how those services are best structured and provided. What I want to be clear on, though, it's not just the amalgamation of services. The biggest services across the county are the social care services. They will make up, or they do make up, about 70% of the services that are provided by local government across the county, and they will have to be disaggregated, not amalgamated. So actually we're looking at bringing services together, but we're also looking at disaggregating those big strategic services currently provided by the county council. So we will work out a detailed programme so that when the new local authorities go live, and we expect that to happen on the 1st of April 2028, based on the government's current timeline, we want to make sure that all of those services, whether they're aggregated or disaggregated, are safe and legal and operating effectively from day one. The other thing that I would say, and I'd want to reassure residents, is business as usual is really important through this crucial time. So those really vital services which affect people's lives every day need to continue. We need to continue to provide quality services, and we need to continue to improve those services. So I would hate our residents to be concerned that there might be a deterioration in those services, because we need to maintain them, and we're committed to doing that. Thank you. Darren might want to add something from his perspective, of course.
Yeah, thank you, Angie. Darren, would be good to hear your perspective on this as well.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Angie. I guess what I would add to that is that the timeline that we're looking at is quite a short period between now and 28. We're talking about just over 2.5 years, aren't we? So it'll come up very rapidly. And the experience from other places is that although there's some transformation and changes that can be made as part of a transition plan over those couple of years, that actually a lot of the bigger changes happen once the new organisations go live. So they tend to happen, the bigger changes, during the first 5 years. So there might be some things that happen that will need to happen for transition. Other things may just move across and then be reviewed and change over a longer time frame. The focus, as Angie was saying, will be to ensure that as part of transition, everything that goes across is seamless in terms of the resident experience, and is safe and legal in terms of the way that we run our services. And then over a longer period of time, I think there'll be wider transformation and change that will impact in a very positive way on the services that residents receive. But I think that's how it's likely to work. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Angie and Darren. So just to add from my perspective, you know, the whole process of local government reorganisation, insofar as, you know, we are absolutely determined that we carry on as business as usual and that we're delivering for residents. Across that, obviously, in the background, we're all aware that change is coming, and we are, you know, already, I guess, more alert to speaking to neighbouring authorities and working with each other as to how we might be delivering, where we can share resources. So, you know, there is a positive side to it all, and certainly, you know, in our stakeholder engagement with our key strategic partners, you know, they're already looking, and by those I mean organisations such as DENS, Sunnyside, Community Action Decorum. They're already looking, you know, as to how we can be working across a larger area. So that, you know, there are positives to come out of all of this in terms of the delivery and how we work more collaboratively across, as I said, along with our neighbours, whoever they may be and however we are formed in the future. That was actually the last question that we have. So thank you all very much for the questions and that you've given. Kate, I think there's a final slide with the next stage. So, as I said, thank you all very much for attending, for the questions you've already asked. We're always delighted to hear from you. So if you've got further questions that you want to come back to afterwards or in the future, you know, please do contact me, you know, contact us through the usual mechanisms, and there's an email address at the bottom. In terms of providing feedback, we've got a dedicated website set up, which is on the slide, www.hertfordshire-lgr, local government reorganisation, lgr.co.uk. You can complete the survey by using the QR code and there's a website with a lot more information on it, as I said. And there's also an email address at the bottom, hertfordshireLGR@connectpa.co.uk. So please do share your views with us. As I said earlier on, it's incredibly important that we hear from you. You know, this is about providing better services more efficiently and more resiliently for the future. So I want to say thank you very much to Angie Ridgewell and Darren Welsh for their presentations and answering all the questions tonight. And again, thank you to all of you for joining us, and look forward to hearing your feedback.